Today, in current events from a Christian perspective, Trump talks about heaven. He asks, can he get in, or he doesn't think he's going to get in? What does it take to get in? We're going to listen to his comments. We're going to look to the Bible for answers. We're going to look at all of this and more today. I'm Matt Odegaard, and this is Church Public. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Church Public. Really appreciate you stopping by today. Hopefully you are having a great day, great week, great month. There's just a lot going on in the world. So hopefully this finds you well. Hopefully if not, I guess I'll just say if not, I hope to make it better. And the reason that I hope to make it better and the way that I hope to make it better has nothing to do with me. It really is all about the Bible, the gospel, and Jesus Christ, who is King now and forevermore. So we look at current events from a Christian perspective so that you can live out your faith. If you like all of this, hit the like, subscribe, share, do all those wonderful things. Leave a 5-star review. If you hate it, throw your phone out the window because you're not going to need it anymore anyway. If you have forgotten, you can get it all of the podcast places like Spotify and YouTube and iTunes or Apple, whatever it's called these days. It'll also be on Rumble because sometimes YouTube likes me and sometimes it doesn't. And, of course, you can go to the new Substack Church. So it's substack.com/@ChurchPublic and check things out there. So anyway, really appreciate you giving any sharing and support that you can. That helps. If you want to help this out, you can go to churchpublic.com/support or subscribe at the Substack as well. So let's go ahead and begin with Trump and this main story. I just think it is interesting. What I love about it is that he's talking about heaven. We'll talk about more about that in a second. So let's hear his comments. Peter Ducey, the reporter, who is great at asking questions, by the way. One of the things I really enjoy is creative questions because I think just in all avenues of life, finding the right question really gets you to the answer and understanding that you want. So he's great at asking questions. Trump has in other times said that he's trying to work his way to heaven or something like that. He's talked about that through Ukraine and some of the other things with Israel and the Middle East that he's been doing. So Ducey, I think, picked up on this and then said something to the effect of, is what you're doing going to get you closer to heaven? So we'll hear that and Trump's response right now.
Go ahead. You had talked a couple of weeks ago, you were doing an interview, and you talked about how you hope to end the war in Ukraine because it might help you get into heaven. How does this help? Does this help?
I mean, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven, okay? I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven, but
Okay, so Trump has been getting a lot of trash on this from both the left and the right, who are saying yeah, you're a bad person, so you don't get to go to heaven. I am not having that take. Actually, I have a different take entirely. I love this. I love this. And many of the other things this administration and Trump personally have done. And I love this specifically because the first step you need in realizing you need a savior is realizing you need a savior. So I love this. I love that he is saying, basically, I'm not sure. Like earlier in that interview, I didn't clip it out. Maybe you saw it. It doesn't really matter. But essentially he said, I'm trying to do enough good to get me into heaven. That's just a super common and popular thing. Everyone says that. I don't know what else to do, so I'm just going to work really hard, and maybe all of that hard work will get me into heaven. Yeah, I mean, that's if you don't understand the Bible, if you don't know the gospel, if you don't read this every day, that's the conclusion you're going to come to, because what else are you going to do? If you don't understand what salvation is, you don't understand what grace is, of course, you're just going to work as hard as you can, doing the best things you can, with all the wisdom that you can, and try to get into heaven on your own merit. Of course, that's what we all do. What I love about this is Trump realizing, I don't think there's enough I can do to get me into heaven. Yes, correct, right, that's it. I love this because that's right. That's theologically correct. Romans 3:23, we've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We can't do it on our own. I I love this. I love that he's saying this. The very fact that he's thinking about this and thinking about heaven gives me hope that he is interested in spiritual things and contemplating his place in the universe, which hopefully and prayerfully, which we all should be doing, will get him to the place where he understands that he does need a savior, can't do it on his own, and needs God in order to do that. I mean, let's look at this verse that Paul points out that I just love and point to over and over and over and over again. Ephesians 2, it's by grace you've been saved through faith. This is not from yourselves. It's the gift of God, not by works, so no one can boast. I mean, that's as simple as I can say it. I think that's as simple as Paul said it, that we can't do it on our own. It's not by works, so you can't work your way to heaven. Not going to happen. Can't do it. And then it's by grace and grace alone. And that grace is given by God through Jesus Christ. There are other verses that are surrounding this and in other parts of the Gospels and the letters in the New Testament that just remind us that it's only through Christ's work that we have any chance at salvation at all. And it's only through the power of the Spirit that we are inclined to move towards God at all. In our deadness, in our spiritual death, we can't even reach out above the grave, above the spiritual death to want to have salvation. Romans talks about this extensively. We don't need to get into all of that right now, but I just love that Trump is interested in these spiritual things and talking about heaven. And I, for one, would suggest this is not a time to trash him for this as a Christian, trashing a person who doesn't quite understand all the things of the gospel. I think this is a great time to pray for him and his salvation, that the Spirit of God would open his eyes to see the truth, that there is only one way, and that is Jesus Christ the Lord. So again, I think this is fantastic. I love seeing stuff like this. I love seeing that he is wrestling with it. It's clumsy. It's basically theologically wrong a lot of the time, but I don't care. I mean, that's great. How else are you going to get there? How else are you going to figure out that you need Jesus? He's hearing people around him. Like I played for you the other day, Marco Rubio at Charlie Kirk's memorial, giving one of the most clear explanations of the gospel I've ever heard. I played for you J.D. Vance reading the Apostles' Creed, which tells you everything that you need to know about who Jesus is, who God is, and how to follow him. Like he's got people around him. Pete Hegseth, I've played you a bunch of Pete Hegseth. I can't say it. Pete's clips that he's talking about Jesus. There are people around Trump who are talking about Jesus consistently. And again, I think it's just a wonderful time to pray for him. We are, in fact, by Scripture, commanded to pray for our leaders because they rule over us, and we pray that they rule with biblical Christian values in the lines of Jesus rather than anything else. Speaking about the other else, you may or may not remember this story that I talked about in the middle of Texas, in above Dallas, in the Plano area. The Muslims were building this city, the East Plano Islamic Center, or EPIC city, and they were planning to build a community based on Islam with, and it appears, including Sharia law. I will not get into all of the ins and outs of Sharia law at this time. I've gone over it a little bit in the past, but if you're interested, read up about it. Essentially, Sharia law is just 180 degrees opposed to Christianity and law and justice. It's just like saying it's the opposite is too small of a phrase. Like the things that Sharia law allows, prescribes by law, especially to women and children, is grotesque and terrifying to live in. And if you don't believe me, talk to people who live in Muslim countries, especially like countries like Nigeria, where tens of thousands of Christians have been killed by Muslims because they don't agree with Islam. So this is a real situation that was beginning in the middle of America, in the middle of Texas. So that was troubling, to say the least. I think I said the last time that we talked about this that, you know, people say, well, you just have to allow freedom and you have to allow freedom of religion for everything. And the answer is no, you don't. This is a Christian country and we're based on Christian values. So you can't introduce alternate values theologically or from a legislative perspective into the laws that we already have. You can't do that. It does not connect at all. You can't bring in these alternate justice places into the country that you have and expect to still have a cohesive country. You can't do that. It doesn't work. So the great news is Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed House Bill 4211 into law September 12, 2025, banning residential developments in the whole state from creating what he described as quote unquote Sharia compounds. This is great news. The legislation was aimed at preventing discriminatory housing practices, which of course is bad. I think, as I mentioned the last time we talked about this, I would not be allowed to go there and say, I want to, live there. I want to talk about Jesus. I want to do other things like that. That would not have been allowed. So the fact that this is now not allowed is great, and I just hope that we will continue to do things like this and legislate morality. I always have these detractors, and I get them from time to time who just, I was going to say yell at me. That's not entirely fair. Just object that you can't legislate morality. And I always say immediately, of course you can. Every law legislates morality, every single one of them. The only question is, which law are you going to point to, which morality? So are you going to point to the morality of the Bible, which is based on the Ten Commandments, a lot of the Old Testament justice, and some New Testament justice as well? Or are you going to point to Sharia law, where the level of justice, again, especially for women and children, is quite different and much more severe? And again, I don't want to get into all the ins and outs of it, but mutilation, stoning, all kinds of other just not great things that I would say we don't want in this country. We specifically have America as a Christian country because we don't want these things. So I love that we're using the power of the law to do this. There's a bunch more details here. We don't necessarily need to get into all of the details, but I love that Abbott is pushing against Sharia law. I don't think I have it anymore. I think I deleted it from my list of things. But one of the things that this leads to is what is happening in Michigan, specifically Dearborn, where they're marching in the street and not allowing, I don't know how to say this. They would say they're not allowing foreigners, but they are not allowing Americans to go into their Islam, Muslim, Sharia controlled areas in America, in Michigan. So I love that Abbott is getting in front of this and changing some things ahead of time to try to protect this. Texas also has an existing law, the 2017 American Laws for American Courts Bill, which prohibits courts from applying any foreign or religious code that conflicts with U.S. or Texas law, which, of course, again, is great news. And this is all super common sense, but people get all wiggly about it and say, well, religious freedom. They say, you can't legislate morality. They say, you can't, be unkind to foreigners or whatever. But that's not what a country is about. By definition, the country has to have standards, laws, rules that lead to the outcomes of justice that country is aiming for. And there cannot be two rules of law. There can only be one rule of law. We have, again, chosen a Christian rule of law that bases the laws on the Bible, the Ten Commandments: don't murder, don't steal, don't cheat, all those other things, and then expands that out. If you change that foundational rule to something else, like an Islamic Muslim standard, the outcome is going to be, again, quite different. And if you wonder what that would look like, you don't have to look any further than many of the Muslim countries in the Middle East, which live by these laws, and the outcome of those laws is what you see in these countries. You can even look to countries like Iran, where in the 60s and 70s, they did not have this Sharia law. And for instance, women walked around, went to universities, looked like normal people, and now you are forced by law to wear the burqa, the hijab, the other things. You can't walk around. Women can't go to university. The people that are arguing for this freedom don't understand what the outcome of these different law codes are, but we have to understand that there are different law codes, and based on which one you choose / allow, you're going to get the outcome that that law leads to. So we need to be very careful in America as we go through this. So everyone thinks it's a great idea. Hope to see more like this as well. What else do we have here today? Let's take a look at some of these stories that I pulled. Okay, here's one. Apparently, the transgender identity or non-male female identity, this just gets so confusing in language because they just make up words and it's hard to know what we're even talking about sometimes. But essentially, the studies were, do you identify as a male or female, or do you not identify as either a male or female? And that would be the bucket of trans or non or all of the other LGBTQAIP hashtag plus plus squiggly emoji $ things. The good news in this chart, if you're just listening, the chart shows an incredible incline in the chart from 2019 on. I mean, from almost like none to so many percentage points. Especially, this is a student chart, but I think it scales out. So this is a student chart where into the 2020s, the number just increased dramatically, exponentially. And then beginning in 23, 24, now 25, the number is just in a nosedive going down. So what does that all mean? I can't say exactly, but what I can infer, and this is my opinion, so you can take it or leave it for whatever it is, but it seems like this trans and non-binary and non-male and female silliness is in decline. And I would say, of course, this tracks. I think it tracks because thinking you can actually change your gender is, of course, impossible. You can't. You can't go from being a man to being a woman. It's literally, biologically impossible. We've talked about this over and over again. We could do biblical things like Genesis 1, where God created the male and female. You can do Psalms. You can do Jeremiah. God created you in the womb. God doesn't make mistakes. I mean, there's so many biblical values and spiritual values that you can put on this as well. But thinking you can change your gender is, of course, impossible and the sign of a broken worldview that's disconnected from biological and spiritual reality. I mean, that's just the truth of it. And we have to live in truth. We can't say lies just to be nice. So the argument from the supporters of this over the past decade or so has been that the reason we're seeing so many trans and other LGBTQAAIP hashtag squiggly emoji $ plus plus people was because the world was finally open to those that have been in hiding for so long. So these people were just hiding. Then all of a sudden the world opened up and people said, oh, I can finally be who I am. But I would say, again, this chart seems to suggest the opposite, because if that were true, the flow line would continue for a long time, and it doesn't. It's actually almost like a mountain. It goes straight up, hits a point, and then comes nearly straight down. What I think that tends to show is that the enormous jump up and crash back down points to a freedom of expression, not arriving in society, but rather a cultural and social phenomenon where people agreed and associated with this group because it was the quote-unquote cool thing to do. I think it was a social contagion thing. I think it's pretty obvious by this chart that people, especially students in this instance, went to school or other places and everybody was doing it, so they did too. I mean, we know peer pressure does incredible and wild things. Like, we just know that. That's obvious to anyone who has eyes. And I think what is good about this chart is that the culture seems to have shifted. We have spoken loudly enough saying men are not women. Again, obvious statements, but it was not like you were not allowed to say that. I have had videos pulled off social media things because I've said men are not women. But again, that's an obvious truth. Like you just can't become something that you are inherently, biologically, spiritually not. So we've spoken loudly, and this is really good. And we've said things like we don't want men in women's sports or events or locker rooms or bathrooms because that's dangerous and not good for anyone. So we're done pretending, and I think culture is catching up with that, and I love seeing that, hearing that, knowing that. I think this is just a great thing that we are moving into. Great step towards this. Now, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, and I hate saying it this way, but the spiritual battle is going to continue to rage on. So even if this one particular point is declining a bit, which is great, we're still going to struggle with things because man inherently by heart is opposed to God. So we're just going to see another thing where we men, humans, just rebel against God in a different way. But I love to see this because it's a great step in the creation order, becoming aligned with society once again. Because as I've said a bunch of times over the past several years at this point, you cannot lie forever. You can't. You can try to lie and you can try to force people to lie. The communist regime is a good example of this in Europe and Eastern Europe for a long time. They forced people to lie, and those that wouldn't lie were just disappeared. But eventually, as Solzhenitsyn points out, like you cannot live by lies and live. You just can't. And eventually the people who see the truth are going to start saying things. The sillier example, of course, is the emperor with no clothes. But eventually someone is going to say, but that's not a thing. And then more people are going to go, right. So I love seeing this creation order begin to become aligned with society once again, and that is super, super cool. All right, let's move on. I think I have maybe only one more story today. Maybe we'll wrap up with some theology thoughts and just do some Bible, because really that's all I want to do. I hate all these news stories. It is so depressing and terrible. But we need to understand how to interact with the world. So this is why I bring you, well, this garbage. This is a good story, though. Let's go to a good story. I think this is connected because what we talked about is the movement of insanity and not reality is crashing. I think at the same time, a movement that is coming up is Christian involvement in everything and spiritual things. And I love that. I love seeing that anecdotally. We're seeing a huge increase in people, especially young people, going to church. This is huge. This is enormous. Like, I'm seeing so many people go to church. I'm seeing it around my city. I'm talking to pastors. I'm hearing from them. Like, people are just going to church that haven't been to church either ever or for a long time. People, especially young people, are open to this. People want the truth. People do not want this watered down, seeker-sensitive, silly Christianity where you just have fun all the time and don't actually talk about sin or the gospel or that you need Jesus. And I believe the churches that are talking the most about saying, hey, you need God. You cannot do it on your own. Like the thing that we were talking about with Trump, like the churches that are the most talking about true gospel are the churches that are really growing the most. And I love that, and I love seeing it. And in addition, there's a bunch of other things. Fox News put some stats up the other day, and they said that Bible sales are up 41%. That's huge. I love seeing that. I think actually, I didn't look this stat up, but I had done a stat a couple years ago as well that Bible sales were up 10 or 11%. So I don't know if that's additive. I don't know if that's including, but 40 or 50%, like Bible sales are up. This is incredible. This is incredible. And here's what I love. Like, I know if you're just listening, you don't see me constantly just picking up this Bible. I do open it from time to time too. Actually, I opened it this morning. I open it all the time. You should do that too. But I love it. I love a physical Bible. I have actually kind of a probably unhealthy size collection of Bibles on the shelf behind me, but I love them. And I don't just love them as like pieces on my shelf. Like I love that the word is written, and that means that I have it and I can open it and I can read it. And if the internet and all the electricity and everything else changes, or if the digital people that are doing the digital Bibles online, which is a fine way to read, but if they just decide to change things and censor things one day, which this world is crazy and that's not beyond the realm of possibility, I can just go to my shelf and say, listen, you cannot change this. I'm going to read this. I'm going to try to memorize it. And I'm going to do my best to do what it says. So I love that. I love seeing that Bible sales are up. That's physical Bible sales. Like, how cool is that? In addition, what do we have here? So spiritual app downloads are up almost 80% in the last 5 or 6 years. That's incredible. So I know that doesn't include only Bible apps, but it includes a lot of Bible apps. So I know that's where a lot of people are reading, doing their Bible reading plans. I love that. That's great. Doing their devotionals, doing Bible reading plans. Keep doing that. Like, that's so good. I know I love an audio Bible as well. I like my physical Bibles, but I like listening to it. The other day I found, this is not a plug and I get no kickbacks from this at all, but I found that Johnny Cash at one point recorded himself reading the New Testament, which I've listened to a bit of. And I don't know, there's something amazing about listening to Johnny Cash read the Bible. maybe that's just me, but I love it. But I also have like a British guy, a no-name person. I don't know who it is, but a British guy reading the Bible. I think that's fun. I have an Australian lady reading me the Bible. Listen, I'm weird, but I love listening to the Bible in different ways. And sometimes for me, it hits my mind, it hits my heart a little differently. Even passages that I've heard and read before, I go, oh yeah, God, okay. Because the Bible is an endless well of wisdom and connection to God. And we need to jump into that well whenever we can. I think there's one more here. Oh, yeah. So contemporary Christian music is up 50% in the last 5 or 6 years. Again, I think that is incredible. I love seeing this. I love seeing stuff like that. I think it is directly corollary to the attendance in church. I think the younger generation is tired of all the madness and the lies. Like we talked about, you can only lie to a population for so long until they look at reality and look at it and go, this is not real. I need something real. And the realest thing in the whole universe is God and his word that he gives us in the Bible. So what better place to turn to for actual truth, actual wisdom, actual reality than the one who made all of the heavens and all of the earth? I think what we'll do from here is I think we just need to do some theology thoughts. Let's do some theology thoughts. We should all leave a bit wiser with more biblical knowledge than we started off with today. And I think let's just do this together. This will be fun. I don't do this enough. And my buttons aren't working, so we're just gonna read it together. And what I'll do, because my buttons and my pictures are not working, listen, guys, this is this is an operation of one. This is a labor of love. I do the best I can. I don't have producers in the back and audio people in the back. You probably saw earlier, if you were watching, that my camera fuzzed out and got fuzzy. This is it. This is me. I'm pressing buttons. I'm switching things. I'm reading. I'm doing all of this at once by myself, by my lonesome. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes it's not working. It's a disaster. I've had times. I'm rambling at this point, but we'll just keep going. I've had times where I've gotten to this point in the recording, and then all of my everything shuts down, and I have to start over. And I will admit mild frustration to that. That's not my favorite thing. But what we're going to do is do some Bible. We're going to read it together. We're going to do Matthew 13. So if you've got a Bible or you've got an app, which we just talked about, right? 50% more Bibles are being sold, so that's good. But yeah, if you've got one, now is a great time to open it up, because I'm going to do the same, because my slides aren't working, and this is just what you do. If you're a communicator and the things don't work, you just do it a different way. That's just how we do this stuff. So I'm looking at Matthew 13. If you've got that and you've got a regular Bible, you can see it's like 3/4 through there, and we can all read this together. And I'm going to read it, and then we'll talk about it for, I don't know, a few minutes. I'll try to keep my comments short because I have a tendency to talk a lot of things. But I was reading this, thought this might be something for us to understand. This is talking about, in Matthew 13, and we're going to start at verse 11. Let's start at verse 11. So this is talking about what you see and what you don't see. And I think, as I read this, what I liked was that I will admit I get frustrated sometimes because people don't understand. Like, I just think, like, this is so clear. How can people not understand? And I realize, and even read this and realize it's spiritually true, that they don't understand because they don't have the Spirit. And so if you don't have the Spirit who opens your eyes to the truth of the kingdom of God, you actually cannot understand. There's other passages that Paul has in Corinthians and Romans where he actually reminds us believers that their eyes have been blinded. They just cannot see. That's the reality of some parts of the kingdom. So this is Jesus talking about how some can see and some cannot. And he even quotes from Isaiah here, which is interesting, because this is not just a New Testament thing. This is a God thing, that God sometimes reveals truth and sometimes does not. So verse 11, Jesus says, he answered them, "To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom, but to them it has not been given. For to the one who has, more will be given, and he'll have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. This is why I speak in parables. Because seeing, they don't see. Hearing, they don't hear. and they don't understand. Indeed, in their case, the prophecy of Isaiah is filled that says, you'll indeed hear but not understand. You'll see but never perceive. People's heart has grown dull, their ears they can barely hear, their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their heart, and turn, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, your ears, for they hear. For I say to you, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see and did not, and to hear what you hear and did not. I love this for you. Hopefully you're still listening at this point and hearing at this point. But what I love is that God has a promise and a caution, and even a reminder. So the caution is that there are many whom we talk to as believers that just won't or even can't hear the truth. And that's sad. And there is the promise that you have been given that you can hear. That's why I love this Trump story so much, that he's interested in heaven. It feels like he's close. I have no way to confirm that. All I can say is just keep praying. But if he's interested, that feels to me like God is doing something. Because why would he be talking about heaven? Why would he be even saying, like, I really like the idea of heaven, but I don't think I'm going there. Like, that's a great statement. I know it sounds weird for me to say maybe, but that's a great statement because it means God is doing something there. God is pricking his heart and saying, hey, that end of life thing, that next life thing, you should be thinking about that. And so I pray for him. I pray for all those who just don't quite believe, but God is working on their hearts. We have a great blessing to be able to read the Bible and understand it. So if you are on that side, I just pray that you would continue to follow after God with your heart and soul and mind and strength. That'll do it for me today. For Church Public, I'm Matt Odegaard. Keep the faith. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by. Really appreciate you. If this is helpful, like, share, subscribe, leave a review, do all those fun things. I love you and look forward to seeing you next time.